I wanted to talk about today was the importance of Graham Potter. And for me, I've changed my attitude with Potter. Not because of anything that he's done that I've seen that's impressive, not because I've had an insight into some fantastic tactics, or I saw anything last season that would lead me to believe that we've hired a spectacular coach. It's not that. It's actually just the state of the club at the moment means that we need him to succeed. I think in many respects, not just when we first got Potter, but maybe when we got Lopetegui as well. I think as a fan, I was spoiled. I was in the realms of what would I rather? What would I rather have as a coach or as a manager? What were the attributes I'd like? What sort of style of football would I like to see? And it feels like a privilege. Well, of course, we were in a privileged position. We'd won a European trophy. Not only had we had a period of stability, which for West Ham is a big thing, right? Traditionally, we're a yo-yo club. But we'd had some good players. We got some good players. We bought some good players. We'd sold some good players. And not that everything in the garden was rosy, far from it. But there was stability. And I've certainly felt that from there, you can be a little bit choosy. OK, we've got this stability. Actually, I wouldn't mind a bit better football, or whatever the case may be. Now, don't get me wrong, not Lopetegui and certainly not Graham Potter. Neither of them were my choices. And I do think, with both managers, we went cheap. Because I think the West Ham board always do that. I think we've got the capacity to spend big on players, be it Sebastian Haller or Lucas Paqueta, or any number of players when we've broken the transfer record. We can waste money. We're happy to waste money like a Felipe Anderson on players, but we're not happy to spend big and go ambitious. I think sometimes we go ambitious with players, we just get it wrong. We don't even try and go ambitious with managers. So I think we went cheap. So I think when Potter came in, I was a little bit disappointed. But again, I think a little bit privileged and a little bit spoiled. Because now I've completely changed my attitude towards it. To the point where I don't even care about style of football next season. Now, I am also aware that as time goes on, as next season goes on, that may change. But if it changes, it will probably be because we're in a privileged position again. If for some reason we find ourselves halfway through the season in mid-table and I start worrying about the style of football, that I would consider to be a luxury. Because at the moment, I'm worried that we're going to struggle. I'm worried that it's going to be bad. And I mean, talk about style of football. Honestly, I wouldn't care if he devised a tactic where all the players farted the ball in the opposition goal. I wouldn't care at the moment. Because I am, if I'm honest, really worried about relegation. And that's nothing to do with Potter. It's not Potter's fault that he is the manager he is. Potter can only be as good as he can be. This is very much the board's fault for what I would consider to be just a level of mismanagement over time. I mean, we're a million miles away from the 10-point plan, the pledges, the reasons for moving to the Olympic Stadium. It feels like there's no point discussing that stuff anymore because, I mean, there could be an argument. You could argue that it did work in as much as we won a trophy, but in fact, I'm not even going to bother with the counter argument. Let them have that. But I think most would agree that the idea of moving to the Olympic Stadium was so as we could compete with the top teams to bridge the gap. Bigger stadium, bigger attendance, more money coming in, low rent, gives us more profit, whatever the case may be. That we could regularly be competing for European football. I think most would agree now that the way the club is run, the infrastructure, everything else, there are many clubs who have gone ahead of us. We would never have imagined for a moment when moving to the Olympic Stadium was being dreamt up as a concept, or once we'd moved in or anything like that, that you would be looking at teams like Fulham or Bournemouth or Brighton, any of these clubs, and thinking, well, they are going to be not just ahead of West Ham, but levels ahead of West Ham. And that's where we find ourselves. and I do find myself, and maybe it's just me, I'm very much speaking for myself here, although I'm quite sure that some people will concur, that I'm worried about the bottom teams next season. I'm worried that we're going to be in and around the bottom 5 for the majority of the season. Those are my concerns. And so I am so much behind Potter, it's unreal. Whatever his plan is, I just want it to succeed. And I don't even want to spend any particular amount of time poring over what I didn't like about his football last season. It doesn't matter anymore. He is going to have to craft a squad out of what he's got, what's coming through in the academy, and what he can persuade the club to buy for him. We signed Magic Diouf. Well, we just hope he's magic. We hope that this guy is as good as Potter and McCauley think he is. I can only hope that both Potter and McCauley are actually just unearthed talent. That actually what they've been waiting for this whole time is the chance to run a club. Because that's what they've got. He is now the manager. Graham Potter is the type of manager that David Moyes wanted his next contract to be. That type of contract that David Moyes didn't get because we had Tim Stighton, because the club wanted to move in a different direction. The club only wanted to offer him a head coach role. Moyes, he didn't want that. That contract he did want, that omnipotence, that power, Potter's got it now. And he's never had that. And I think he must be looking at it now with his good mate, McCauley. Maybe they're thinking, this is our chance. Maybe they've been working at the clubs for all the years together and they've been looking at the other people and thinking, well, we could do this. We could do this. We could do this just as well. And we have to hope that they can. We have to hope that they do. We have to hope that their vision, and I've no doubt they've got a vision. That's not even up for debate as far as I'm concerned. Whether Potter and Carl McCauley have a vision for the club and what they want to do, and scouting and recruitment and infrastructure, that's beyond doubt. They have a vision. The only question is whether that's going to work or not. I guess particularly if you want to get a little bit more detailed than that, whether that vision is going to be able to work in the current environment of the board. One thing that may go for them is, whilst it's been heavily criticised, the way Potter was appointed and basically got the job, as most people would agree, because of his relationship with Karen Brady. Maybe that buys him a little bit more support. Maybe that buys him a little bit more leeway. I don't know. I think there's signs there. I think the fact that he rejected Carl Walker-Peters and said, no, I want to do it my way. I don't want this free transfer, this 27-year-old. I like that. Like I said, I like Walker-Peters. I think he's a good player. I think he would have been a good guy for the squad. But I like the fact that Graham Potter has the purpose and the tunnel vision, if you want, to stick to his plan and his projects and what they're planning and trying to do. I mentioned in yesterday's video, probably unlikely that unless something's happened by the time this video gets uploaded and something different now that I don't know at the point of recording this video, whilst it might be unlikely that we get Harvey Elliott, I like the fact that Potter's pushing the club to get him. I like that. I think that's good. But we need him so much now, so much. Because what we need him to do, we need Potter to bridge the gap. Not just tactically, tactics are going to be important, but in terms of that vision for the infrastructure of the club. Say what you want about Chelsea, say what you want about Todd Boehly, they do produce good players and they've just been world champions. So he must have seen something when he was there. Brighton are really good at what they do. He'll have seen that. That stuff that Tony Bloom does and that algorithm stuff and the data analysis, they've seen that. They've been part of it. I think it's a gamble. I still believe that's the case by saying, well, actually, we're just going to take just two little compartments of that bigger overall network that they had at both clubs, and actually the risk to say, actually, these two guys are going to do that job that whole departments used to do. Now, I understand. I'm not trying to be disingenuous there. I do understand they're trying to build a department. They're recruiting more analysts. They've built a good coaching department and a bigger coaching department. I absolutely get that. I still think that's a risk. But what we really need from Potter is for him to bridge that gap and make up for the deficiencies that there are. Not even just so much at board level, but the fact that there's this big void there of no director of football. So these other things that we see, all these other clubs, some of whom I've mentioned earlier, these things that we see them doing, this cerebral, this planned method of recruitment, which Sunderland have just been promoted. They've gone and got one of the best directors of football in the game, put him in place and started bringing players in. You feel with a plan and with a purpose, and they've started doing it immediately. We've got to bridge that gap. We don't have this stuff. We don't have a Tony Bloom. We don't have a chairman or an owner that's in that modern way of thinking in many respects. I don't know. I'm not close enough to it, but I would suspect my own opinion is probably not an awful lot has changed with Sullivan and Brady, probably since the Birmingham City days. So who's going to drag us forward? Who's going to modernise us? Who's going to take that next leap? And maybe it's a lazy throwaway comment. I've said on numerous times, it feels like we're 20 years behind. It might not be that. You might be able to show me different examples. But it feels like we're behind, whether it's 20 years, 10 years, or whatever. I mean, time moves quickly in football, right? You've only got to look at the stadium. What seemed like a really good deal at the time in terms of the rent, which had us sort of laughing, thinking, hold on, we've got a good deal here. This is going to keep us doing well. It now is not looking quite so clever, is it? Because we can't do the naming rights. We can't get that extra, I think, extra money from hospitality and all that type of stuff. That's stuff that wasn't really an issue then, because when we agreed to move to the London Stadium, it wasn't something that was relevant in football, the FFP, which became PSR. It's maybe, just maybe, 12 years ago, or whatever it was, whenever we decided to go in there, maybe, just maybe, that was fine. A low rent was probably going to be enough to keep you ahead of the opposition. Now it won't. Now you've got to think on your feet. Now you've got to be clever. Now you've got to maximise every single revenue stream. Well, we're in a rented stadium. We don't have that many revenue streams. So what my point is, what used to... time moves quickly. Football moves quickly in a very, very short period of time. And what might have been advantageous a little while ago ain't so bloody clever now. So who's going to bridge that gap? Who's going to be forward thinking? It has to be the manager, because he's the one in charge. Not only is he the one in charge, I think he possibly at the moment has enough clout where he's not getting players forced upon him, where people on the board will listen to him. He doesn't have a lot of wriggle room. He can't get a lot wrong. And I have no faith. Here's the other thing. In a scenario that, let's say we get to November and we're in the bottom three and they sack Graham Potter, I have no faith that the next guy that they choose would be any better. That would be a disaster for us to be down there. And we get to what I was saying at the start of the video. That's almost like how we play football and how we might prefer it aesthetically to win a game of football. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. We've slipped so far so quickly. And I understand. I understand all the arguments about Moyes and about how maybe, he was a perfect manager in COVID and this, that and the other. And I do think he was probably on the decline at West Ham. I do think he was tired. I think he was worn out. And I still believe that you get a very, very different manager when Alan Irvine is with him. I think you can almost draw a line through his results with Alan Irvine and without them. So I think that's the case. We've still fallen a lot. We have. And we've got to find a way to creep back. I'd love to sit here and say we're going to smash our way through the glass ceiling and be battling out with the top six next season. I just find it hard to believe such a thing. I was going to say we need Potter to weave his magic. We'll leave that one, I think. But we need him. We need him so much. We need him to be successful. We need his tactics to work. If it turns out we've got to see games out, I'm now listening to some of the stuff he was saying last season. I'm playing it over in my mind. We said we were never out a game. What he meant was we were never more than a goal away from being in a game. We're going to need a lot of that next season. We're going to need whatever he's planning, whatever he's doing in pre-season. We're really, really going to need it. We're going to need him to. We're going to need the young players. We're really going to need them because we're not going to have enough in terms of just signings that come in. He's going to need to get everything's got to be right. Everything, tactics have got to be right. Getting the best, and to be fair, he did. It wasn't great. I thought he really improved Lucas Paqueta last season. I think more or less, a lot of the other. Well, Wan-Bissaka. To be fair, Wan-Bissaka was excellent all season. It's hard to make a case that he improved many of the other players. He's going to have to improve the current players. He's going to have to bring through the youth players, and he's got to get his transfers right. That's not easy. And honestly, we need him to do it. I really want him to do it. So was he my choice? No. Am I fully behind him? Yeah, I really am. And in many respects, I sort of see him as the victim a little bit in this. And I do think there were probably other managers that could have come in and could have got a better net result with the players last season. I didn't think we had bad players. But I do think there's a melancholy about the club now. I do think it feels that way anyway, at least as fans. That's one of the reasons I quite like seeing the snippets from the pre-season stuff, and when they're away at the moment, aren't they doing I was going to say warm weather training. You don't need to go anywhere for warm weather training, do you? But whatever, change is as good as a rest and all the rest of it. I like seeing that. The squad seem to be in good spirits. I watched a really nice piece with Nicholas Fulkrug, who just looks like a really good guy, doesn't he? Looks a really good guy to have around the squad. Really enjoyed watching that. So I enjoy seeing that maybe the squad are not as miserable as I'm feeling about it all. But yeah, I just couldn't help. I just can't help but think we really need him. We really, really need Potter. I'm willing him to do well. And of course, you should be willing every manager to do well. But you get to a point when you've been spoiled that you get a bit fussy. And there was no way, and I have to say this, there was no way, I thought Lopetegui was crap, right? There was no way when Lopetegui was completely messing up how to organise a defence. And we had some really, really good players. And you're thinking, hold on, he can't get a tune out of Kudus, he couldn't get a tune out of Bowen. It's so many players he couldn't get a tune out of Lopetegui. Playing players in the wrong position, thinking, what's he doing playing Alvarez at centre-back and stuff like that? There was no way at that point I thought, well, this could get worse. And I didn't. Clearly I was naive, I got it wrong. It did get worse. Fortunately, towards the end, the net result was okay. But Lopetegui left in 14th and we finished the season in 14th. So, we got a par, basically, didn't he? But I was fussy at the time, so I was thinking, I don't like this Lopetegui. I think I prefer somebody else. Honestly, it's like being at a banquet or a buffet. I don't think I'll have that. I think I'll have the chicken satays instead. Sorry, it always comes down to food, doesn't it? We can't be fussy at the moment. So whether he bores the pants off us or not, for me, it's all about the wins. It's all about the points. And don't get me wrong, we start next season. If we do a review and we play badly, we'll call it in a review. But we need him, irrespective. If we go to the Stadium of Light and we get an undeserved 1-0 win, but they look better than us, I'll take it. You can come back and refer me back to this video if I might. But, as I say, I might. You'll have to. You do a review. You've got to say, well, maybe you should have done this, or maybe you should have played that player, maybe you should have done that substitution early, later, whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. It actually doesn't matter. We need him to do well. And I really hope he does. I hope he can get the feel-good factor going. I just hope some more players can come in. I hope we start to see the green shoots of something new, of something. I was going to say something better. Do you know what? I'd go with competent. I would go with competent. I'd take that all stay long next season, competent, get a little bit of stability. Because until there is a takeover at the club, I can't imagine there's going to be some massive infrastructure that's going to be implemented by anyone. It's not just Sullivan or Brady. It's Krasinski don't look arsed. It's not like he's. I know, to be fair, you might even understand why he sort of tried to get a bit involved, appointed Tim Stight, and he's not there anymore. He's got bigger fish to fry in that sense. But I don't see anybody, and it doesn't matter whoever it is, until there's a takeover, I don't see anybody at the very, very top at boardroom level implementing the change and modernising. There's only one man that's going to do it, and that is Graham Potter, and we need him.